The UES horizon drifted through the darkness of space like a metal city among the stars. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the red glow of Proxima Centauri grow larger through the massive windows. 20 years had passed since they left Earth. 20 years of sleeping in cold storage while their ship carried 50,000 colonists to humanity's first new world. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the planet below them. New Geneva, they had named it even before landing. The world looked perfect from space. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling around like Earth's little sister. After 2 decades of travel, they were finally home. "Captain, we're getting the first surface reports," said Lisa Park from her communications station. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and bright eyes that never seemed to tire. "The advanced teams say the air is breathable. Gravity feels just like Earth. Temperature is warm but not too hot." Jake smiled. This was what they had dreamed of when they left Earth behind. A new world where humans could build something fresh and clean. No pollution, no wars, no crowded cities. Just open land and endless possibilities. "Any problems down there?" Jake asked. Lisa shook her head. "Nothing major. Commander Torres says the landing zones are perfect. They're already setting up the first shelters." Commander Alex Torres was the colony's military leader. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from old battles on Earth. Jake trusted him completely. If Alex said the surface was safe, then it was safe. For 3 weeks, everything went perfectly. The colonists built their first town near a river that reminded them of the Colorado. Children played in fields of alien grass that felt soft under their feet. Engineers set up power stations and water treatment plants. Farmers planted earth crops in soil that seemed eager to help things grow. Jake watched it all from orbit aboard the horizon. Every day, more shuttles carried people and supplies down to the surface. Soon, most of the 50,000 colonists would be living on New Geneva instead of in the ship's cramped quarters. Then Katie Rodriguez found the ruins. Katie was the colony's chief engineer, a woman in her 30s with calloused hands and oil stains on her clothes. She was exploring the hills east of the main settlement when her scanner started beeping like crazy. "Captain Morrison, you need to see this." Katie's voice crackled over the radio. "I'm sending up images now." Jake looked at his screen and felt his breath catch. The pictures showed massive stone blocks carved with strange symbols. The ruins stretched for miles underground like a buried city from some ancient time. But these weren't human ruins. The symbols were too different, too alien. "How old are they?" Jake asked. "Dr. Clark is down here with me," Katie replied. "He thinks they're at least 10,000 years old." "Maybe older, Captain. Whoever built this place had technology we can barely understand. I'm reading energy signatures deep underground. Some of this stuff might still be working." Dr. Ben Clark was their best scientist, a man who studied dead civilizations. If he said the ruins were important, then they were very important indeed. Jake ordered more teams to investigate. For 2 days, they explored the underground chambers and tried to understand the alien writing. The ruins were beautiful but strange, like walking through the dreams of beings who thought differently than humans. Then Lisa Park heard the signals. She was working late in the communications center, listening to radio waves from deep space. Most of it was just static and noise from distant stars. But one signal was different. It was organized, purposeful, like someone trying to talk. "Captain, I think we have a problem," Lisa said, her voice tight with worry. "I'm picking up artificial signals from outside the system. They're not random. Someone is broadcasting on frequencies that don't occur in nature." Jake felt cold fear creep up his spine. "Could it be from Earth?" "No, sir. The signal is coming from the direction of Alpha Centauri. And Captain, there's something else. I've been analyzing the pattern and I think it's getting stronger. Whatever is sending this signal is moving toward us." Jake called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. Commander Torres, Dr. Clark, Katie Rodriguez, and Lisa Park gathered in the conference room aboard the horizon. Through the windows, New Geneva looked peaceful and beautiful, but Jake no longer felt safe. "Show them what you found," he told Lisa. Lisa activated the main screen. Lines of data scrolled past, but Jake could see the pattern even without understanding the details. The signals were definitely artificial, definitely intelligent, and definitely getting closer. "I've run every analysis I can think of," Lisa explained. "These aren't random signals. They're too organized, too complex. Someone is out there and they know we're here." Dr. Clark leaned forward. "The ruins we found might be connected to this. What if the civilization that built them encountered these same beings? What if that's why the ruins are buried and empty? Commander Torres spoke up. Captain, I recommend we go to full alert. If someone is coming, we need to be ready. Jake nodded, but he wondered what they could possibly do. The Horizon was a colony ship, not a warship. They had mining equipment and construction tools, but no real weapons. If hostile aliens were heading their way, 50,000 colonists would be sitting ducks. Over the next day, the signals grew stronger and more frequent. Lisa worked around the clock to decode them, but the language was completely alien. Dr. Clark studied the ruins, hoping to find answers in the ancient stones. Then the ultimatum arrived. It came as a burst transmission directly to the Horizon's main communication array. Somehow, the aliens had learned human language and knew exactly how to reach them. The message was simple and terrifying. Humans of the third planet system. You have entered territory claimed by the Zephyrian Empire. Your presence violates Imperial law. You will abandon your settlement and return to your origin world within 72 standard time units. Failure to comply will result in the complete elimination of your colony. This is your only warning. Jake stared at the message on his screen, reading it over and over. 72 hours. 3 days to pack up 50,000 people and somehow get them back to Earth, 20 years away. Commander Torres checked his weapons inventory and shook his head. We can't fight them, Captain. We don't even know what we're up against. But Jake Morrison had not led 50,000 people across 20 years of space to give up at the first sign of trouble. He looked out at New Geneva, where children were playing and families were building new lives. We're not leaving, he said quietly. This is our home now. If they want it, they'll have to take it from us. The countdown to invasion had begun. Katie Rodriguez had not slept in 36 hours. Her eyes burned and her hands shook from too much coffee, but she could not stop working. The alien fleet would arrive in less than 2 days, and she had promised Captain Morrison that she would find a way to defend New Geneva. She stood in the colony's main workshop, surrounded by mining equipment and construction tools that had never been designed for war. But Katie had grown up in Detroit, where her father taught her that any machine could be turned into something else if you were smart enough and desperate enough. Ryan, help me move this plasma cutter, she called to Ryan Cooper, the colony's best pilot. He was a tall man with steady hands and the kind of calm that came from flying dangerous missions through asteroid fields. Ryan grabbed one end of the heavy machine. Katie, are you sure about this? Turning mining equipment into weapons sounds crazy. Katie wiped sweat from her forehead and smiled grimly. My grandfather fought in World War III with nothing but scrap metal and determination. These aliens think we're helpless colonists. Let's show them what human engineers can do when they're angry. In the underground ruins, Dr. Ben Clark was having the most important day of his career. He had spent his whole life studying dead civilizations, but now he was racing to understand alien technology that might save humanity. The ancient control room was massive, filled with screens and panels covered in strange symbols. Most of the equipment was dark and silent, but some displays still glowed with soft blue light. Ben ran his hands over the alien controls and tried to make sense of what he was seeing. Lisa, are you getting any readings? He called into his radio. Lisa Park's voice crackled back from her position at the main communications array. The energy levels down there are incredible, Dr. Clark. Whatever this place is, it's still partially active after 10,000 years. Ben stared at a wall covered with images that looked like star maps. One section showed the Proxima Centauri system, with New Geneva clearly marked. But there were other markings too, symbols that might represent fleets or battles or something else entirely. Lisa, I think these ruins are some kind of defense system. The civilization that built this place fought someone. Maybe they fought the same aliens that are coming for us. On the surface, Commander Alex Torres was turning farmers and engineers into soldiers. The colony had no real military weapons, but Torres had learned long ago that wars were won by people, not equipment. He gathered 300 volunteers in the main square of New Geneva. These were ordinary people, teachers, doctors, mechanics, parents, who had come to Proxima Centauri looking for a peaceful life. Now they were humanity's only defense against alien conquest. I won't lie to you, Torres told them. We're facing an enemy with superior technology and more experience. They expect us to run or surrender, but we're not going to do either of those things. A woman named Grace Murphy raised her hand. She was a construction worker with strong arms and a determined face. Commander, what exactly are we going to fight them with? Torres pointed to the workshop where Katie Rodriguez was working. Engineer Rodriguez is converting our mining equipment into weapons. We'll have plasma cutters that can slice through enemy armor, construction mechs that can be turned into fighting machines. And we have something the aliens don't expect. What's that? Asked Sam Blake, a young shuttle pilot who looked barely old enough to shave. We have the fact that this is our home, Torres replied. They're fighting to conquer. We're fighting to survive. That makes all the difference. Back in the ruins, Dr. Clark finally made a breakthrough. He had been experimenting with the alien controls for hours when suddenly an entire wall lit up with images. The pictures showed space battles, alien ships firing at each other, and most importantly, defensive systems that looked like they might still work. Captain Morrison, you need to get down here immediately. Ben radioed to the horizon. I think I figured out what this place is. It's not just ruins. It's a fortress. Jake Morrison arrived in the underground chamber an hour later, along with Lisa Park and several other officers. They stared in amazement at the alien displays that Ben had managed to activate. This civilization called themselves the HFY, Ben explained, pointing to symbols on the wall. Based on what I can understand from these images, they controlled this star system for thousands of years. Then the Zephyrians came. The same aliens that are coming for us? Jake asked. I think so. Look at these ship designs. Ben showed them pictures of sleek, predatory vessels that matched the energy signatures Lisa had detected. The HFY fought them for decades. This facility was their last stronghold. Lisa studied the alien technology with professional interest. Can any of it still work? Some of it, Ben replied. The power systems are still active. I think I can bring the defensive shields online, at least partially. But I need more time to figure out the weapons systems. Above ground, Katie Rodriguez was having her own success. She had managed to convert 12 mining mechs into combat units, installing armor plating and plasma cutters that could be used as weapons. The machines were slow and clumsy compared to real military equipment, but they were better than nothing. Ryan Cooper was working on an even more ambitious project. He was stripping weapons from the colony's small security force and installing them on civilian shuttles and transport ships. The vehicles had never been designed for combat, but Ryan believed that speed and surprise might make up for their lack of armor. Katie, how long until the mining charges are ready? Ryan asked. Katie looked at the pile of explosive devices they normally use to blast through rock. Give me 6 more hours. I'm rigging them with proximity sensors and basic guidance systems. They won't be as good as real missiles, but they'll explode when they hit something. When the Zephyrian fleet finally appeared on the colony's sensors, Jake Morrison felt his stomach drop. There were 12 ships, each one larger than the horizon. Their hulls gleamed with an oily black finish, and they moved through space with predatory grace. Captain, they're broadcasting, Lisa reported. Put it on speakers, Jake ordered. The alien voice was cold and emotionless. Humans, your time limit has expired. Prepare for immediate evacuation or face termination. Jake took a deep breath and opened a channel. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human colony on New Geneva. We reject your ultimatum. This is our home and we will defend it. There was a long pause. Then the alien voice returned and Jake could hear confusion in the tone. You refuse evacuation? No species has ever refused Zephyrian authority. You will be destroyed. Then come and try, Jake replied. The first alien ship moved toward the planet, weapons charging. But as it entered the upper atmosphere, something unexpected happened. Ancient defensive systems that had slept for 10,000 years suddenly came alive. Energy beams lanced up from the buried ruins, striking the alien vessel's shields. The Zephyrian ship staggered under the impact. Warning lights flashed across its hull as systems overloaded. The alien commander had expected to face helpless colonists, not the defensive systems of a civilization that had fought the Zephyrian Empire before. On the surface, Katie's converted mining mechs powered up their weapons. Ryan Cooper's armed shuttles lifted off from landing pads and formed attack formations. Commander Torres and his volunteer soldiers took positions around the colony's perimeter. Jake Morrison watched from the horizon's bridge as the battle for New Geneva began. The aliens had expected easy conquest. Instead, they found humans who refused to surrender, ancient weapons that still remembered how to fight, and the kind of desperate courage that came from defending home and family. The Zephyrians were about to learn their first lesson about humanity. When cornered, humans did not run. They fought back. The message from Proxima Centauri arrived at Earth through the quantum communication relay at exactly 3:47 a.m. Universal Time. President Helen Walsh was awakened in the White House by her chief of staff, who looked pale and shaken. "Madam President, you need to see this immediately," he said, handing her a tablet with a decoded transmission. Helen read the message 3 times before the words really sank in. The colony at Proxima Centauri was under attack by hostile aliens. They had managed to fight off the first assault, but more enemy ships were coming. Much larger fleets were heading toward Earth itself. "How long do we have?" Helen asked, pulling on her robe and walking quickly toward the Situation Room. "Based on the alien fleet movements that Captain Morrison reported, our analysts estimate 18 to 24 months before they reach the outer solar system," replied Admiral Chris Evans, who was already waiting with a room full of military officers and scientists. Admiral Evans was a weathered man in his 60s who had spent his career preparing for threats that might never come. Now the ultimate threat was heading directly toward Earth, and he had less than 2 years to get ready. "What do we have to work with?" Helen asked, settling into her chair at the head of the conference table. "Not much, I'm afraid," Evans replied honestly. "The Solar Defense Fleet has 57 active warships, most of them designed for patrol duties and asteroid mining protection. We have maybe 300 civilian vessels that could be armed and armored, but they were never meant for real combat." Dr. Amy Foster spoke up from her position at the table. She was the director of the Advanced Technology Division, a brilliant woman who specialized in reverse engineering alien artifacts. "We have the wreckage samples that Captain Morrison managed to send back through the quantum relay. Small pieces of alien hull metal and electronics. It's not much, but it might give us insights into their technology." Helen looked around the room at the faces of Earth's best military minds and top scientists. These people had dealt with wars and disasters before, but nothing like this. Humanity had never faced an enemy from another star system. "I want recommendations on my desk in 6 hours," she said firmly. "We're not going to sit here and wait for them to come destroy us. If these aliens think humans are an easy target, they're about to learn otherwise." Dr. Amy Foster had not left her laboratory in 72 hours. She worked with a team of engineers and scientists, studying every piece of alien debris that had been transmitted back from Proxima Centauri. The samples were tiny, fragments of metal and crystal no bigger than coins. But they told an important story. "The alien hull material is incredibly strong," Amy explained to a group of military officers who had come to see her progress. "But it's designed to resist energy weapons, plasma beams, particle accelerators, that sort of thing. It's actually more vulnerable to simple kinetic impacts than our own steel armor." Colonel Nick Hayes, who was in charge of converting civilian ships into warships, leaned forward with interest. "You mean old-fashioned bullets and missiles would work better than laser cannons?" Amy nodded. "Exactly. These aliens have been fighting civilizations that use advanced energy weapons. They might not be prepared for the kind of mass-produced kinetic weapons that humans excel at making." This was the kind of news that made Nick Hayes smile. He had been worried about how to arm converted cargo ships and passenger liners with weapons they could not afford and did not have time to develop. But railguns and missile launchers were technologies that humanity had been perfecting for centuries. Meanwhile, engineer Maya Singh was working on an even more ambitious project. Maya ran the largest shipyard in the asteroid belt, where she normally built mining platforms and space habitats. Now she was designing something entirely different, weapons that could destroy alien fleets. "The key is mass production," Maya explained to her team of engineers. "We can't build ships as advanced as theirs, but we can build 10 times as many. 100 times as many if we have to." Her plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to build a few super-advanced warships, humanity would construct thousands of smaller vessels armed with basic but effective weapons. Swarm tactics instead of high technology. Captain Luke Bennett was overseeing the most important construction project in human history. Mars Defense Station was being built in orbit around the Red Planet, positioned to intercept any alien fleet before it could reach Earth. Luke was an engineer by training, but he understood warfare well enough to know that Mars was the perfect place for humanity's first line of defense. The station would be massive, larger than any structure humans had ever built in space, and armed with hundreds of weapons platforms. "The aliens will expect us to defend Earth directly," Luke explained to his construction crews. "They won't expect us to meet them at Mars with everything we've got." The station took shape slowly over months of round-the-clock construction. Civilian ships arrived daily with steel beams, armor plating, and weapon systems. Workers in spacesuits crawled over the growing structure like ants building a hill. Except this hill was designed to destroy alien invasions. Back on Earth, the entire planet was mobilizing for war in ways that had never been seen before. Every major nation contributed ships, weapons, and personnel to the solar defense fleet. Factories that normally made cars and computers were converted to produce missiles and armor. Even civilian space miners and cargo haulers volunteered to join the defense. Fleet. President Helen Walsh addressed the world from the United Nations headquarters in New York. She stood behind the podium and looked directly into the cameras, knowing that her words would be heard by every human being in the solar system. My fellow humans, she began, we face a threat unlike any in our history. An alien empire that has conquered 12 star systems is coming to enslave or destroy us. They believe we will surrender like all the others before us. They are wrong. She paused and took a breath. We are not like the other species they have conquered. We do not submit to bullies. We do not bow to tyrants. We fight for our families, our homes, and our freedom, and we will win this war. The speech was broadcast to every colony ship, space station, and settlement in the solar system. On Mars, Captain Luke Bennett's construction crews cheered and worked even harder. In the asteroid belt, Maya Singh's shipyards increased, production beyond anything they had thought possible. Admiral Chris Evans stood in the command center of the Solar Defense Fleet's headquarters and watched the tactical displays show humanity's growing strength. In 18 months, they had built the largest military force in human history. It still might not be enough, but it would have to do. Status report, he ordered. We have 843 armed vessels ready for combat, reported his aide. Mars Defense Station is fully operational with 600 weapon platforms. Deep space sensors show the alien fleet is still 14 months out, but they're definitely coming. Evans nodded grimly. The next phase of the war was about to begin. The aliens had conquered New Geneva easily, because they faced unprepared colonists with mining equipment. Now they would face the combined military might of humanity, backed by the industrial power of an entire solar system. But more importantly, they would face something the Zephyrian Empire had never encountered before, a species that refused to accept defeat. No matter what the odds, the countdown to the Battle of Mars had begun. Fleet Admiral Sarah Brooks stood on the bridge of the battleship Unity and watched the tactical display show 200 red dots moving through the outer solar system. The Zephyrian invasion fleet was larger than anyone had expected, but Sarah felt no fear. She had been preparing for this moment for 18 months. Sarah was 53 years old and had commanded ships in 3 different wars on Earth. She was tough, smart, and completely ruthless when it came to protecting humanity. The aliens were about to learn why the other nations of Earth had learned to fear her fleets. Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up detailed scans of the enemy formation, reported Commander Eric Stone from his position at the sensor station. Eric was young but experienced, having served on patrol ships in the asteroid belt before the war began. Sarah studied the display. The alien ships moved in precise formations like they had done this 1,000 times before, which she realized they probably had. The Zephyrian Empire had been conquering other species for centuries. They knew exactly how to invade and destroy civilizations, but they had never invaded humanity before. All ships, this is Admiral Brooks, she broadcast on the fleet communication channel. The enemy is entering our outer defense perimeter. Execute Plan Delta, I repeat, execute Plan Delta. Plan Delta was humanity's first surprise for the aliens. Instead of waiting for them to reach Mars, the human fleet would hit them at Neptune's orbit with everything they had. Wave after wave of attacks designed to hurt the enemy before the real battle began. Captain Danny Roberts commanded Mars Defense Station from its central control room. The station was enormous, a metal mountain floating in space with enough firepower to destroy small moons. Danny had been working on the station for over a year, and he knew every weapon, every system, every corridor. Captain, we're receiving Admiral Brooks' signal, reported his communications officer. The outer engagement has begun. Danny watched his screens as the first human attack reached the alien fleet. Commander Eric Stone was leading a squadron of converted asteroid miners, their hulls packed with explosives. The plan was simple and terrible. Ram the alien ships at full speed and detonate everything they had. The miners accelerated toward the enemy formation at maximum thrust. The alien ships fired their plasma weapons, destroying many of the attacking vessels, but others got through. When the first mining ship smashed into a Zephyrian cruiser and exploded, The blast lit up space for millions of miles. Eric Stone's voice crackled over the radio as his ship approached an enemy dreadnought. "This is for Earth, you alien bastards." His miner struck the alien vessel amidships and both ships vanished in a ball of nuclear fire. The suicide attacks continued for 2 hours. The aliens destroyed most of the mining ships, but they lost 30 vessels to the ramming attacks. More importantly, they were confused and angry. No species had ever used such tactics against them before. Pilot Jenny Cole commanded a squadron of mass-produced fighters that humanity had built specifically for this war. The ships were small, fast, and cheap to manufacture. Jenny's squadron alone had 200 fighters, and there were 50 squadrons just like hers. "All Hawk squadrons, this is Hawk Leader," Jenny broadcast to her pilots. "Engage swarming pattern 7. Hit them from all directions at once." The human fighters attacked like a cloud of angry bees. They were individually weak compared to alien vessels, but there were thousands of them. The aliens had trouble targeting so many small, fast-moving ships attacking from every direction. Jenny's fighter darted between 2 alien cruisers, firing missiles at their weapon systems. She did not try to destroy them. Her missiles were not powerful enough for that. Instead, she aimed for sensors, communication arrays, and engine pods. Death by 1,000 cuts. The aliens adapted quickly, but not quickly enough. By the time they developed tactics to deal with the fighter swarms, they had lost another 40 ships and most of their remaining vessels were damaged. Admiral Brooks watched the battle reports and smiled grimly. The outer engagement was going better than expected, but the real test was still coming. The surviving alien ships were regrouping and heading for Mars. That was where the war would be won or lost. Mars Defense Station was humanity's greatest achievement and its last hope. The station had 600 weapon platforms, each one capable of firing solid metal slugs at incredible velocities. The weapons were simple compared to alien plasma cannons, but they were devastatingly effective. Captain Danny Roberts received the final status reports from his department heads. All weapon systems operational. All defensive shields at maximum power. Ammunition stores at 100%. The Zephyrian fleet approached Mars in a tight formation, their remaining ships battered but still dangerous. There were 130 alien vessels left, still outnumbering humanity's major warships by 3 to 1. But the aliens had made a critical mistake. They assumed that Mars Defense Station was just another planetary defense platform, like the ones they had destroyed on other worlds. They did not realize that humans had spent 18 months turning it into the most heavily armed fortress in the galaxy. "Enemy fleet entering primary engagement range," reported the tactical officer. "Distance 50,000 kilometers and closing." Danny Roberts stood up and looked around the command center at his crew. These were ordinary people from Earth and the colonies who had volunteered to stand between humanity and extinction. Engineers, technicians, former cargo pilots, and asteroid miners who had trained for months to operate the most sophisticated weapons ever built. "All stations, this is Captain Roberts. Open fire." Mars Defense Station erupted with light and thunder. 600 railguns fired simultaneously, launching metal slugs at 10% of the speed of light. The projectiles crossed the distance to the alien fleet in seconds. The Zephyrians' energy shields, designed to stop plasma beams and particle weapons, were nearly useless against simple kinetic impacts. The metal slugs punched through alien armor like bullets through paper. 3 enemy ships exploded immediately. 5 more lost power and began drifting. The aliens returned fire with their plasma cannons, but Mars Defense Station's shields held. The humans had learned from studying alien weapons and designed their defenses specifically to resist energy attacks. The battle raged for 6 hours. The aliens tried every tactic they knew: concentrated bombardment, flanking maneuvers, boarding attempts, but nothing worked. The humans had prepared for everything and had weapons the aliens could not defend against. Lieutenant Grace Murphy led the ground defense when alien troops tried to capture sections of the station. Grace had been a construction worker before the war, but she had trained with Commander Torres's volunteers and learned how to fight in zero gravity. The alien soldiers were tall, thin beings with forearms and natural armor plating. They were experienced warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never fought humans in close combat before. Grace's team used tactics that confused the aliens completely. Instead of meeting them head-on, the humans used the station's maintenance tunnels and service corridors to attack from unexpected directions. They set traps, used improvised weapons, and fought with a desperate ferocity that shocked their enemies. These humans fight like wild animals, one alien warrior reported to his commander before Grace's team cut his communication line and captured his position. By the end of the 6th hour, the Zephyrian fleet was broken. Only 40 alien ships remained operational, and most of those were heavily damaged. They began retreating toward the outer system, but Admiral Brooks was not finished with them yet. "All ships pursue the enemy," she ordered. "Do not let them escape to report back to their empire. We end this here." The human fleet followed the aliens toward Jupiter, harassing them with fighter attacks and long-range missile strikes. The retreat became a rout, as more alien ships broke down or were destroyed by pursuing human vessels. Captain Pete Garcia commanded a squadron of heavy cruisers that cornered the last alien dreadnought near Jupiter's moons. The enemy ship was massive and still dangerous, but it was alone and outnumbered. "This is Captain Garcia to the alien vessel," Pete broadcast. "Surrender immediately or be destroyed." The alien commander's response was filled with confusion and rage. "Impossible. No species resists the Zephyrian Empire. No species defeats our fleets." "You just met one that does," Pete replied. Then he ordered his ships to open fire. When the last alien vessel was destroyed, a strange silence fell over the human fleet. For the first time in 18 months, the solar system was safe. Humanity had faced an enemy with superior technology and greater experience, and had won through courage, determination, and the refusal to accept defeat. Admiral Sarah Brooks looked at the tactical display showing the wreckage of the Zephyrian invasion fleet scattered across millions of miles of space. She thought about Commander Eric Stone and the hundreds of other humans who had died in the battle, and she made a silent promise to their memory. This war was not over. The aliens would send more fleets and humanity would be ready for them. But more than that, humans would take the fight to the enemy. The Zephyrian Empire had made the mistake of threatening Earth's children. Now they would learn what happened to anyone who tried to destroy humanity's future. The captured Zephyrian commander sat in the interrogation room aboard the battleship Unity, his forearms bound with restraints designed for alien physiology. Admiral Sarah Brooks studied him through the one-way glass, noting how the alien's confidence had crumbled since his fleet's defeat. "His name is War Leader Zektar," reported Dr. Julie Martinez, the fleet's xenobiologist who had been working with alien prisoners for the past month. Julie was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who specialized in understanding how other species thought. According to our translation software, he's commanded invasion fleets for over 2 centuries. Sarah entered the interrogation room and sat across from the alien commander. Zektar was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes that reminded her of a shark. His species had evolved as predators, and it showed in every line of his body. "War Leader Zektar," Sarah began, "your invasion has failed. Your fleet is destroyed. I want to know about your empire's military capabilities." The alien's translator device spoke in a mechanical voice. "You cannot have defeated us. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 12 star systems. No species resists our might." 12 systems, Sarah repeated thoughtfully. "How many species did you destroy to conquer them?" 47 civilizations submitted to imperial authority. 6 were eliminated for continued resistance. Sarah felt cold anger in her chest. 47 species had surrendered rather than fight. 6 others had been wiped out completely. The Zephyrian Empire was built on the bones of entire civilizations. "Tell me about your military doctrine," she ordered. Zektar's alien features showed confusion. "Doctrine is simple. Superior technology overwhelms inferior species. Advanced civilizations surrender quickly when they understand our power. Primitive civilizations are destroyed. What about species that fight back with tactics you don't expect?" The alien was quiet for a long moment. "No species fights back. Resistance is illogical when defeat is certain." Sarah leaned back in her chair. "War Leader, you just lost 200 ships to a species that didn't exist when your empire began. We used weapons you couldn't defend against and tactics you couldn't understand. How do you explain that?" Zektar's translator was silent for almost a minute. When it finally spoke, the alien's voice sounded different, uncertain and afraid. "Humans are unexpected." Admiral Brooks left the interrogation room with a better understanding of humanity's enemy. The Zephyrian Empire was powerful but not invincible. More importantly, they had never faced a species like humans before. Every other civilization had either surrendered quickly or fought defensive wars until they were worn down and destroyed. Captain Pete Garcia was preparing humanity's first offensive operation. His task force included 50 of the most advanced ships in the Solar Defense Fleet, along with captured alien navigation data that showed the location of Zephyrian forward bases. Pete had been studying the enemy's tactics and technology for months. He understood that humans had won the Battle of Mars through superior numbers and unexpected weapons, but the next phase of the war would be different. Now they would be attacking alien positions with all the advantages on the enemy's side. The target is a supply depot in the Kuiper Belt, Pete explained to his ship commanders during the final briefing. Intelligence indicates it's lightly defended, but strategically important. If we can destroy it, we'll disrupt their ability to launch another invasion. Commander Tony Lewis, captain of the cruiser Defiance, raised his hand. What about alien reinforcements? If we attack their base, won't they send more ships? That's exactly what we want them to do, Pete replied with a smile. Let them come to us in small groups instead of organizing another massive invasion fleet. We'll defeat them in detail, one squadron at a time. The human task force departed Mars 3 weeks after the Great Battle. They moved carefully through the outer solar system, using asteroid fields and planetary shadows to hide their approach from alien sensors. The element of surprise was crucial to their success. Dr. Julie Martinez had been working with more alien prisoners, learning about Zephyrian psychology and culture. What she discovered changed everything humanity thought they knew about the war. Admiral, the Zephyrian military caste has a fatal weakness, Julie explained during a briefing aboard the Unity. Their entire social structure is based on the assumption of technological and tactical superiority. When they encounter something they can't understand or control, their command hierarchy begins to break down. Admiral Brooks studied the psychological profiles Julie had developed. You're saying they're not just militarily unprepared for us. They're psychologically unprepared, exactly. The Zephyrian Empire has existed for 1,000 years by conquering species that fought predictably. Energy weapons, defensive strategies, conventional tactics. They've never encountered mass production warfare, suicide attacks, or the kind of relentless pursuit we showed after the battle. This information gave Sarah an idea that would change the entire course of the war. Instead of simply defending the solar system, humanity would take the offensive and attack Zephyrian positions throughout local space. But more than that, they would use tactics specifically designed to create psychological pressure on enemy commanders. Captain Pete Garcia's task force reached the alien supply depot after a month of careful travel. The base was built into a large asteroid, with docking facilities for over 100 ships and storage for weapons and supplies. It was exactly the kind of target that would hurt the Zephyrian war effort, but Pete had no intention of simply destroying the base and leaving. That would be too predictable. Too much like the conventional warfare the aliens understood. All ships implement Plan Charlie, Pete ordered. We're going to capture this facility intact. The human attack was swift and brutal. Fighter squadrons swarmed the base's defensive platforms while heavy cruisers used kinetic weapons to punch holes in the asteroid's armor. But instead of destroying everything, the humans specifically targeted life support systems and command centers. The alien defenders found themselves fighting for air and power, while human boarding teams stormed through their corridors. Commander Tony Lewis led the assault on the main command center, his Marines using tactics the aliens had never seen before. Instead of advancing in formation, the humans used the base's own ventilation systems and maintenance tunnels to attack from multiple directions simultaneously. They set up crossfire zones, used improvised explosives, and fought with an aggression that left the alien defenders stunned and demoralized. Their resistance is collapsing faster than expected, Tony reported to Pete over the tactical network. It's like they don't know how to fight when their standard procedures don't work. Within 6 hours, the alien base was in human hands. Pete immediately began converting it into a forward operating post, using captured alien equipment and human ingenuity to create a hybrid facility that could support extended operations in enemy territory. More importantly, he began broadcasting signals throughout local space using captured alien communication equipment. The signals were designed to sound like distress calls and requests for reinforcement, drawing small groups of Zephyrian ships into carefully prepared ambushes. Over the following months, Pete's task force destroyed 17 alien vessels and captured 3 more bases. Each victory provided new intelligence about Zephyrian operations and created more psychological pressure on enemy commanders who could not understand how a single human task force was dominating their territory. Back in the solar system, Admiral Brooks was preparing humanity's grand strategy for the next phase of the war. The aliens would eventually organize another invasion fleet, but it would take them years to replace the ships lost at Mars. That gave humanity time to build an even larger fleet and establish forward bases throughout local space. We're not going to wait for them to attack us again, Sarah explained to President Helen Walsh during a secure communications session. We're going to take the war to them. Every Zephyrian base within 50 light-years is a target. We'll hit them again and again until their empire understands that humans are not prey. President Walsh studied the strategic plans that Sarah had developed. They called for the largest military expansion in human history, with new shipyards built throughout the solar system and colony worlds converted into forward military bases. Admiral, this is incredibly ambitious. Are you sure we can sustain this kind of offensive? Madam President, we have something the Zephyrian Empire has never encountered before. We have the industrial capacity of an entire star system, a population that refuses to surrender, and military leaders who understand that the best defense is a good offense. Sarah paused and looked directly into the camera. But most importantly, we have something that none of their previous enemies possessed. We have the willingness to take the fight to them, to hunt them down wherever they hide, and to make them regret ever threatening humanity. 6 months after the Battle of Mars, Captain Luke Bennett commanded a new type of human vessel, a deep space assault ship designed specifically for operations in enemy territory. His ship, the Retribution, was fast, heavily armed, and built for extended missions far from home. Luke's orders were simple: find Zephyrian installations and destroy them. Create fear and confusion in their rear areas. Show them that nowhere,